Welcome to the Hard Faith Podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Fulmar, the founder of Hard Faith. I've been working in the film and television industry for over 16 years. On Hard Faith, we're about asking difficult questions about life and faith in an R-rated world. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hard Faith Podcast. I am your host, Spencer Fulmar, and today we're talking about the upcoming feature film that's going to be out in theaters, Pastor's Kid. We have the director, writer, producer, Benjamin Ironside Koppin, is it?
Yeah, perfect. You got it, buddy. What do you call me? What do I go by with you?
Oh, and I just call Ben Ironside all the time.
Or sometimes I'll get Old Ironside.
Old Ironside.
And
then we have the star lead of the film, Courtney. Courtney, thank you so much for joining us on the show, and you did a phenomenal job in the film.
Well, shucks, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yes. So tell me about how this film came about. How long you've been working on it? Tell me a little bit about Pastor's Kid.
Yeah, so I mean, long story short is after working in LA in the film industry for a number of years, I was at Lionsgate for a season. I ended up finding myself working at a church down in Orange County where we're filming. I was the video director, so we'd film, tons and tons of testimonies. One Easter, we're scrambling, right, for a testimony to share for the big Easter service. We'd had one that didn't work out. We're like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And so a friend of mine that I worked with at this church just offered to tell her story. So we sat her down in the studio and we filmed it. And basically what kind of came out was a story I never would have thought would have been her journey. It just kind of summarized it as, she was raised with an alcoholic mother. So she had to basically raise her own little brother since her mom was, drinking, passed out. But the difference was it wasn't, in a bad neighborhood or bad apartment or bad house. Her mom had a really great job. They had lots of money. She was a working alcoholic, but she would have to basically wake her mom up for work in the mornings because her mom would be drunk and passed out. All of that would happen. Men would be in and out of the house, how it'd be. Basically, her mom then got clean, became a Christian, became an executive pastor at a church, which means she took all that business side and did handle the business of this church. And then everyone praised the mom as being this big, amazing conversion story, she went from, this dark, alcoholic lifestyle to now being this pastor that helps us with our church. All along the while, our lead character, my friend, was like, no one saw my pain. No one saw that I went through this as a kid. No one cared. So she's like, going into high school and college, I pushed God away. I pushed the church away. I pushed my mom away. And she said, got into kind of the partying lifestyle of her own straight A student. While partying and doing all these things, she got into selling cocaine to her friends. So got into that drug lifestyle. Exactly. And she said, basically at one point, I thought I would never talk to my mom again. Well, all of a sudden, one night at a bar, she gets roofied by these dudes, and they're making away with her to a car. And her friend rescues her and saves her. And she wakes up the next morning in his apartment to 100 missed calls from her mother because she had drunk, roofied, called her mom the night before. And so basically that one call kind of sets off a chain reaction of her dealing with some of the traumas, being triggered by that, and eventually her reconnecting with her mom and going on a trip to Sri Lanka, where I don't want to spoil the ending too much, but maybe she has the spiritual experience where she can see that there is another path for her to take. And so she shared this story. Anyways, my friend shared this story with me. I had no idea that was her journey. And I was like, can we please turn this into a movie? And she agreed to it. So that's where the film of Pastor's Kid came from.
What a powerful story. Love the title. I've seen the film a couple times, and it is really great. It's riveting. It's raw. It's gritty. It's redemptive. It's hopeful. It's all the things you want. And what are we calling it? Is it a faith-based film?
Sure. Yeah.
What do you call it? What do you call this space?
We've been trying to coin the term Christian art house is the word.
I like it. I like it.
We'll see how that sticks. But yeah,
hard faithy.
There you go. Exactly. Exactly. I love it.
Courtney, this had to have been a difficult role. I mean, you gave a really compelling performance. It's very authentic, very believable. It almost feels like the camera is just following you along in real life. That's how real this film is. Courtney, now your last name is Bandeko? Bandeko. Courtney Bandeko.
It's all good either way.
Thank you. So Courtney, tell me, what was it like to portray this character? How did you live in that skin?
It's so funny you call it redemptive, because I feel like to make redemptive piece, you need to find something in you for that to happen and to actually experience something like that. And so it's so funny that we would call it difficult, because it didn't feel difficult. Did it take a lot of work? Did it take a lot of hours? Did it take a lot of thought and energy? Absolutely. But I would say, like, complete labor of love, ultimately something very redemptive for me as a person as well. So I just feel very lucky to have been given this opportunity, responsibility. Yeah, I think it's I don't know really what to call it. Just to be given this. I think the word is responsibility. To be given the opportunity to do something like this on screen, to stretch myself, to tell a story that, is meaningful, that, I care about, Ben cares about, that, a film that's just trying to accomplish something, however big or small.
I love that word, responsibility. That's a great term you don't hear a lot in the film industry. Tell me a little bit more about that. What is the responsibility you felt in portraying this character, giving, doing the subject matter justice, doing this real life inspirational story justice?
I ultimately think my biggest responsibility is to the truth. And I say that as an actor, and I say that as a person, and how I want to live my life. And so when I say that in anything I do, I really want to say, hey, this is true. This is what exists. And then there's no agenda behind it. It's really just, I want to hold a mirror up and say, hey, this is happening. And with anything I'm doing, this is happening. What do you think? And then if the very least, if at most it starts a conversation, and I mean a productive one, then I feel like we've done our jobs.
I love that. That's so good. You said no agenda. Let's talk a little bit about, whenever we talk about faith-based films, there's usually a very capital A heavy agenda. How are you guys different in a Christian art house film? How do you tell this story?
Yeah, I think for us, the first thing that was such a difficult decision, I didn't know how difficult a decision this would end up being, but we were like, we're going to make it R-rated, and we're going to make it in the reality of how people talk, of how people act. And, it's been very interesting we've gotten a little bit of criticism on that side from just a handful of people saying, how could you make this R or put language in it? But what's been crazy, Spencer, is, and I don't think this would have happened 5 years ago, people are coming to defend us in comments, or I'll talk with someone in the chats that's very blatantly against the idea of, having language in a Christian film or a faith film. And I'll talk them through it. And I'll say, for us, it felt disingenuous to make it PG and to water her story down, because the whole point of the story is to show the darkness with which God would step into to save her. And so when we PG everything, or we whitewash everything, or we sanitize it, it's not the same as actually experiencing and seeing what this world is going through. And Courtney, you even mentioned this earlier, is like, it's not that we're trying to glamorize the lifestyle. It's not that we're trying to say, oh, this is the right way to be, but we're just showing that this exists. And asking, are you open enough to come in and experience the realities of what these people are going through? So, man, that's so good. It's crazy though. It's a ride. I can relate, some of my own films and controversy and language I had in my movies. And it's strange that whenever you talk about Jesus or redemption, and you also have some language in your film where you make it R-rated, the more traditional faith-based audience, kind of the church ladies, are not okay with that. But I think it's real life. I think these kind of films do more for the witness of Christ and for religion and for a safe space to talk about faith and religion and the hardship of life. Right.
I think those kind of conversations, like Courtney, you were talking about, it stirs a conversation. And I think art should do that, no matter what it is. And I think Christian art like this and art house cinema that you're creating, I think is really vital to the conversation, and a conversation that's not being had very often.
Yeah, and I say, if we sanitize what is, if we sanitize the truth, how do we have a real conversation? How do we have a real productive conversation, because if we only tell X amount of truth, there might only be X amount of progress we can make. So why not just tell it how it is, no value judgment on it, just This is what it is. And then we can have a real honest, open conversation. I think there's so much opportunity there for more connection, more vulnerability, more powerful. And I say power, but the collective power, that we can all, hive mind this and say, how can we be better? I've said this before, and I say, I don't think it's not so much a criticism. I think, what we do is ultimately really celebrate and uplift this community. We're just saying, hey, I think this is how we can do it better. If we're interested in growth and doing it better.
Absolutely.
And it's really exciting.
And I think too, for like a real life inspired story, like Pastor's Kid is, I mean, this is someone's actual life. This is what they went through.
Right.
And so if you sanitize, someone's life, I feel like it's just not really honoring the actual person and what they went through. It's also not honoring, how God ordained our life to unfold. I mean, shit happens and it can get pretty crazy. And yet somehow redemption is still possible. There's still hope. And if you sanitize either one, I just feel like we're not being honest with the hope that we actually have.
Because we can get so down on ourselves and hard on ourselves for being human and making mistakes and thinking one path is the right path, thinking wholeheartedly this is what I should be doing. And then if I realize, oh, wow, I've been on this path for a really long time, I don't know if I can turn back or change. So do I double down or do I not? And is there support if I change? Or, there's just so many questions when it comes to that. And just to say that there's room for all of it. There's room to err. There's room to be imperfect. There's room to not have it right, not have it together.
I love that. That's so good. Tell me a little bit about the production of this film. It's coming out March 15th. In how many theaters?
We have 31 theaters nationwide right now.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. Thank you, dude. It has been
That's amazing. Honestly. Seriously. That is incredible.
It's been a journey. And so the big thing we're trying to push for is if people want to jump on pre-sale, please buy our tickets early. So
buy them. Buy them where?
Fandango and AMC.com or AMC's website. If you're in LA, it's at the Lemley. So I don't know if they're partnered with Fandango or not, but the Lemley theater chain has it. And otherwise, AMC and Fandango, the ticket should be up.
And then our website, can they find it on our website? They just go to Pastor's Kid.
Yeah, pastorskidthemovie.com. We have a link there to showtimes. But Spencer, do you remember us meeting with you, me and my wife, Kristen?
Oh, yeah. Like, I don't know, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was a while back. It was right before I think we went into production on the film. We met up with you because Spencer had made Generational Sins. Yeah. Which, was that R-rated or PG-13?
It was PG-13. It said the F word once, and Ted Baer and Movie Guide hated it. So I got a lot of free press just from Christians hating the movie so much.
Oh, man. And we met up with Spencer, and I was just like, so what was your experience like? And he's just like, oh, boy, let me tell you. But it was hopeful, too, as I feel like you had a bit of hope that it's like, it found its audience. It was doing what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was a good just little shot in the arm for us to keep it going, like you keep going the way that we felt called to do it. And so, yeah, man.
Good on you.
We pushed forward. I remember we met with multiple Christian studios that were like, if you PG this movie and sell a book with it, we'll help you find funding. We'll get it out there. And I remember we had one last meeting and I was so beat down. And I called my wife afterwards. I was like, do we just kind of like sell out and like go with this Christian inspirational side, or do we do it our way? And she was like, we do it our way. And I think that was shortly after we met with you and had some inspiration from you. And so, yeah, with that, we had funding going up to the beginning of the film or close. We had our script ready. Funding fell through last minute in some ways. We had some stay and some leave. So we had to trim the script up. And then we filmed for, what was it, Courtney? 2 weeks. I think we did 2 main weeks. Then we broke for a while, and the film's broken up with like a main narrative and then flashbacks. So we broke apart for a little while, raised some more funding, and then came back and shot all the flashbacks and then our final third act in another country, which we used LA for. Yeah, another country. And yeah, so I think it was about 3 weeks total of production with a handful of pickup days. Would you say, Courtney? Something like that?
Yeah. Less than a month, but yeah, 3.5 weeks total.
What was set like? What was the experience of filmmaking like?
Courtney, you go.
Ooh, I'm gonna brag on you a little bit.
Thank you.
There we go.
I need it today.
So this is ultimately why this film means so much to me, is just everything was so rare, just because in Hollywood it moves so fast, everything is done so quickly that, and it's great. We can accomplish amazing things very quickly, but to just have the opportunity to go deeper, to have the chance to think about it just a little bit longer. I had a month to prepare for this, which is unheard of, I think. Well, unheard of so far in my career. Usually I get something, it's due the next day, or I get something, hey, you're going to get a plane tomorrow, and then you're going to shoot for 2 days, and then everything's just such a whirlwind. I'm like, what happened? And those instances, they're fine and amazing because you can just either exercises and letting go and letting something else hopefully operate through you. So is this other thing, but at least, you can think more on it and be just a little bit more involved in its depth, and it can be more redemptive for you, not to make it selfish, but sorry, back to Ben. So the days were short and not a whole lot was on the schedule per day. Did we fill the days? Absolutely. And it's because what Ben is so good at doing is he's just so good at setting people up for the freedom to go. And there's always more time for another take. And I think that's the big luxury of the indie world in general, just because there isn't all these people. It's a smaller crew. It's so intimate. There was a sound guy, a couple gaffers, and then it just felt, I felt so supported just because anytime the cameras were rolling, it was just everybody in the room, my heart was open to everybody. And then it's just a little harder to do on a bigger set when there's hundreds of people there and they're all hungry and they're kind of not really paying attention, but everybody focused on this one thing. I felt so supported, so open. And then there was time, there was a big group friend scene where there was magic happening, but it just wasn't quite there. There was time for a break. There was time to, hey, Ben says, shake it off, go grab a juice, grab a coffee, we'll come back. And then we did it. And then, and I just felt that's what set was like. And then, shout out to Ben's wonderful, wife who produced the film as well. She was always there, very supportive. And then I'll say one more thing, is that Ben say something needed to happen character-wise or emotional-wise, and we weren't quite on the same page. Ben would go there with me. Mm. He would walk me down those stairs, and I just felt supported and safe to do that. Not that it was scary or anything, just when you're dealing with something so delicate within yourself, it can be hard. It can be more tricky to get there. And so it's way more fun that way. It's way more freeing and fulfilling that way. It's way more collaborative and creative. And so that in a nutshell, in a big rant, that ultimately is why this film means so much to me, just because the making of it was just such an experience that I don't know if I'll ever experience again. I hope I do. Ben, we're making another one.
There we go. Let's do it. There we go. Let's go.
The Pastor's Kid trilogy.
There you go.
Right.
Still pastoring, still kidding. There you go.
Great job, Ironside. I mean, that is wonderful to hear. I mean, that kind of set experience is very rare, and it just sounds like it was just a blessed experience. Ironside, how did you meet this incredible talent, Courtney? How did you two connect?
So we had actually, we were looking at a character to play the mother in our film Pastor's Kid. And so it was someone we'd seen on television. Because, I don't know if you do this too, Spencer, but when you're thinking of a film, you're like, whatever you're watching at that time, you're kind of like, oh, could that person be the person? Or that,
yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like casting direct.
Like, I wonder what Brad Pitt's doing.
Right. So we had seen an actress on a television show, and we thought she was great. We were thinking of her for the mom role, and so I reached out to her. They weren't interested. But next to her on IMDb was Courtney. And we had kind of gone down the line with another actress of auditioning her. We'd done some chemistry reads. And, she just didn't. The whole movie is on this character's shoulder. The entire movie, like, she's in 95% of the scenes, 97% of the scenes. There's very rarely a scene that this character is not in. And so, we kind of gone down the line with this actress, and we'd really tried to see if we could get to that depth that we needed, right? Mm-hmm. And she was younger too. She had just started acting again. This is not meant to be negative on her by any means. It's just, I was trying to see, could she handle the whole film, And we were even kind of like to the point of like, do we change some of the script to kind of fit this person a little bit more? And Kristen, my wife, was the one that was like, let's just keep searching for a little bit longer and just see what we can find. And so on IMDb, like I said, we're searching for the mom. I saw Courtney. And then I think I went on your Instagram, Courtney, and you had posted some silly auditions or something like that.
Oh.
And I remember I watched them. It was like bloopers. And I was just like, that's the person we want to be with for, in the middle of the night when we're all exhausted, like still shooting a movie. And so we reached out and she sent an audition tape and we knew exactly. It was a long monologue. We kind of sent her and she brought this depth to it. And we knew immediately that's the person because, like I said, the whole movie relies on, can you connect with her? Can you empathize with her? Something Courtney even talked about was she had made this decision that I didn't even realize until we just talked the other week, is that when she's in front of her friends, she's never emotional. She always puts up this face. And then all of a sudden we're behind closed doors and she's breaking down. And it's like this pressure that she has to release, because she's going back out into the world, has to put on the front. Then she's by herself again and she's allowed to let that out. And I didn't even realize that, but that's something Courtney brought to the table.
And I forgot I made that choice. It's so funny, but it was such an important choice, because it was really important to me that we illustrated how often we keep it to ourselves and then we go out and just put on a smile on for the world. And, we just don't know what somebody's going through. We don't know what their thoughts, we don't know their feelings, but everything's fine, they say,
On that note, what do you hope or the impact will be on this film? And what are some of the reviews you've already heard?
You want me to go, Courtney?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start. For us, I feel like over the last 5 years, and Spencer, you can tell me if you agree with this or not, I feel like we've seen the faith film world pushing the envelope more. Mm-hmm. I feel like we've seen things like The Chosen. I know it's a TV show, but that has been successful in it. I remember at least the first season had a pretty hard edge to it. I haven't got a chance to see the new season that's out. I feel like I saw the film Jesus Revolution, and I was really, honestly, very surprised with how real they played that movie, and especially the drug aspect. Father Stu is another one that came out with Mark Wahlberg, and it was a powerful film. And I know people say, it didn't blow up and do amazing, but it did decent. Like, it did better than I was worried the Christian audience just wouldn't show up at all, and it did pretty well. The Blind is another one that I've heard. I haven't got a chance to see it yet, but I've heard amazing things about it. And so I hope that we can kind of be the next step in some of this. I feel like for so long, faith and family has been paired together. Yes. That they have to be together. And now we're starting to see these films where even on The Chosen, there was a warning on one of the episodes that said, this is an adult setting. We're dealing with adult issues in this one. So if your kids watch The Chosen, maybe skip this episode or skip this portion. So I think we're starting to see that there is this break where it's okay to sometimes make faith content that doesn't fit that faith and family box. Yeah. And so I think that's honestly led the way for us to be able to have Pastor's Kid come out and hopefully have it be a success. And even we just got a review in today that was extremely powerful. It was a video review someone did that they were raised a pastor's kid. They were raised as a prodigal kid. And she's like crying, watching an early screener of our movie, talking about how it's a full reflection of who she was. And when I saw that review, I was just like, that's why we made this movie. That's exactly why we did this film. That's so good.
Yeah, I certainly hope at the very least we move the marker 1 millimeter. And then if that's all we can do, that's huge. Amazing. I mean, in terms of the genre, yes, but then even personally, anybody who sees the movie, Christian, non-Christian alike, if the markers just move, their heart is just open a little bit more. If their minds are open to something they haven't seen before, just a little bit more inquisitive to their neighbor, their a stranger, whoever they're dealing with. I mean, that would be my hope for something like this.
Well, and something we even talked about too is with that art house thing real quick, as I'll say, is like, what I love about our movie is that it's a day in the life of film. It's as if a documentary was just dropped into this woman's life. So there's no big plot moving everything forward. There's no big events necessarily that are happening, but you're kind of seeing aspects, and we have a few, but it's like you're seeing aspects of the mundaneness of her life where traumas are being triggered constantly. And she's having to deal with these things. Like there's one scene that really hit me the last time I watched it, where basically her roommate and her roommate's boyfriend are fighting over something stupid, something that absolutely does not matter. And she's caught in between this stupid conversation. And then as soon as she's like getting ready by herself in the bathroom, a trauma of hers is triggered, of her family fighting. And that's something is we just don't know what people are going through in our day-to-day lives, like right next to us, things that are brought up and triggered and trauma. And I feel like the way we told the story, though it's not plot driven, I hope that that is realistic to, kind of what people go through with that.
I love that. Tell me a little bit about Ironside Films, 1988 films, as well as if people do miss the theatrical release or they listen to this podcast later, how can they follow along with the journey? How can they see the film in the future? Do you know where you're going to be and when you're going to be on platforms?
Yes. So I'll start with where it's going to be, that I can talk about our companies a little bit. Great. VOD will kick in about 30 days after the theatrical release. So it should be up on Amazon Prime 30 to 45 days after the theatrical release. And then we should be on Tubi and all those platforms down the line, but we'll be starting on, I believe, Amazon Prime and Apple TV, I think, are two that we're going to be kicking off with. And then kind of those was it AVODs, all the free streamers down the line. So that should be about 30, 45 days after the theatrical release. But we're really trying to push hard for that first weekend of the theatrical release for people to show up. But yeah, basically Ironside Films is our production company. My wife and I, we do commercials in LA. We work predominantly in the beauty scene. We actually just won an Emmy for, I don't know if I told you this, like a documentary show that we were a part of. It was a beautiful show. It was I came on to DP and direct, so it's not like our company won the Emmy necessarily. But yeah, we're kind of like an Emmy award-winning team we have that we work with. That's awesome. That's been pretty
Congratulations,
cool. It's kind of a big deal. I know. I got the text today that's like, you can order your Emmy here, and I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. So, anyways, so cool. But yeah, that was a show called Food Heroes. It's up on First We Feast on YouTube. But anyways, yeah. So I DP'd and edited them. So that's how we pay the bills. That's kind of what we do as our day job, is kind of Ironside Films, this commercial branch. But every year we try to make an indie feature is the goals, whether some might be smaller, some might be bigger. And what we found is that we got screwed over by a distributor on one of our early films. And so we're like, we can figure this out. So we created 1988 Films. That's our new distribution company that we've made. And we're slowly funneling our films through that. We have VOD partners that we're putting out on all the platforms. We signed a deal for physical media in Walmart's, Best Buy, Barnes & Noble. I think everything's online now with those, because I think a lot of things have been pulled out of actual stores. And then this is our first theatrical release. Pastor's Kids, our first theatrical release. So if this one's successful, we now have, kind of that trajectory where we can release all of our films on VOD, physical media, and a theatrical release if it calls for it. So
that's awesome. Hey, Courtney, what is upcoming for you? Where can we see you on upcoming projects and productions?
Well, I've got this, and then I've got a secret little project I'm putting together with a friend. Just stay tuned. Hang out with me on Instagram, and I'll be posting some updates about that. And then,
awesome.
Yeah. My Instagram is Bandecoot. It's my last name, Bandeko, with another OT on it. And
Bandecoot.
Good place to Bandecoot.
I like it. Yeah, Crash Bandicoot.
Crash Bandicoot. And
very nice.
Coincidence that it matches my last name. Because I do love those video games. I did play them a lot. But that's a really good place to stay up to date on my goings on.
That's awesome. Thank you both so much for coming on to the Hard Faith podcast. Before I let you go, any final words, anything else you'd like to say about the experience of Pastor Kid, or what you hope audience takes away from this film?
I would say more so, I hope audiences can go into it with an open mind. That's been our big thing. Is I think if you're showing up expecting a Kirk Cameron movie or God's Not Dead, then you're going to be disappointed. But if you are able to come in with the idea of this is just like a real movie of someone's life telling a story of faith, that's where I think people have come out very moved and impacted by. So, yeah.
And then on the inverse, if you're expecting a movie that's just going to rag on the whole community, we're not doing that either. So I really think that's what I mean by no agenda, is we're not really doing either of those things.
I love that.
I have a little joke that I say, the church lady needs to take her heathen college student to go watch this movie, and the heathen college student needs to take his church lady mom or grandma to this movie too, because they both can get things out of it. So
that's so good. That's a great offering that you have in Pastor's Kid. I hope that we see more films like this. Look forward to following both of your progress. I wish you all the best for the theatrical release. I can't wait to see the film again, and I strongly encourage our audiences to watch the film and check it out. What is the website one more time?
It's pastorskidthemovie.com, and you should be able to find tickets either on their Fandango or AMC's website. And if you're in LA, the Lamel website will have our tickets too.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ironside. Thank you, Courtney. It's so great talking to you.
So much for having me.
Thank you, Captain Hard Faith. I appreciate it, man.
Congratulations. This has been another episode of the Hard Faith Podcast, Season 2. Thanks so much for listening to this edition of the Hard Faith Podcast. Please subscribe and share this podcast. Visit hardfaith.com to learn more.